destructive culture to a destructive culture in a different form. I spent a lot of time talking to guys some generation above me, the two generations above me, kind of feeling out what was life like for you guys? What was it like meeting women? What were relationships like? And in a lot of ways, like people want to say like the world's getting worse, like we're just going downhill, we're falling off a cliff. Other people are like, look at all the progress we've made, like we're going in the right direction. Look at the way that it was. And I'm like, it's kind of a little bit in the middle. It seems we we're taking something that was flawed and then going in the opposite direction and throwing the baby out with the bathwater, which no one really understands at the time, but we all end up kind of looking back and being like, ooh, yeah. And this is just how history goes. It's always every movement is a counter movement to the pre-existing movement and ends up getting some things right at the same time, getting just so many things wrong. So, growing up in the 50s and 60s, it was women look great, war men were going to do manly things. It was very much based on camaraderie. It was based on personal responsibility, financial, you know, accolades. Um, just it was a very masculine was a masculinity was a very emotionless, performance based set of rules that coming out of World War II brought a sense of unity and purpose and camaraderie in a lot of ways was beautiful, but it just missed so many things. And that was it did treat women a lot like objects. It did, you know, it did discourage a sense of self-reflection and emotional depth within men. It did subjugate women. It did discount women. And so our solution in the 60s and 70s and all the way through is, let's make women more like men and men more like women, and that we're somehow all of a sudden the same. And, here's where we're at now is that sex is the same for men and women. You know, we have the same interest in each other. We're all of a sudden, attracted to the same things in the other person and it's just ridiculous. Men have different things that they're attracted to in women, and women are attracted to different things in men. The research backs this up. There's some similarities, but in a lot of ways, you know, making the assumption that we're somehow the same is almost just as wrong as saying things in the 50s were the way they should be. So we had the 60s, the sexual revolution, pushing the hookup culture into the 70s, 80s, 90s. Free sex, free love, independence, and then we lose, no fault divorce, and all of a sudden we have broken families, and we're free and happy without being really free and happy. And to now you get to 2025, where you're seeing things getting even weirder in a different way, which is people just aren't dating at all. They're not having sex at all. They're not pursuing each other at all. They're not getting married. I'm 37, and you have a lot of men who are afraid to talk to women altogether, that feel like they're going to be offensive to women, that feel like they're going to be made fun of by women. They feel that, sometimes women just will make a TikTok video and display it on the internet. But I think a lot of it is is mostly just fear and a lack of interest in pursuit, which is a terrible thing for a man to lose. A lack of drive, a lack of purpose. It's who we are. Can't take that away from us. We go empty. That's how we get into the video games, the TV, the entertainment, the porn. We just don't do well without a drive in some area or another. And it doesn't have to be anything. I mean, it can be your work life. It can be athletics. But we do better when we're out there trying to improve ourselves, when we're banding together. And it's no surprise that male loneliness is becoming more and more of a phenomenon because we just when there's less drive, there's less need for men to surround yourself with to engage in that drive. Women, women are stuck in their own ways. Women are chasing something for the most part that is not attainable to them, which is their idealized view of a man. And where this comes from, I think a lot of people can debate, and it can be a topic for discussion, but research shows that there are a large number of women in relationships and a small number of men in relationships, which suggests that you just have a small number of dudes sleeping with a lot of women. And you have a lot of men who are choosy, who are like, I don't want to settle down with any of these women. This could be because they just are so interested in sexual novelty that settling with one woman, how is that possible? They don't see it as being possible. Another is that they just don't see one of these women as being worthy of committing to. And that's a tough pill to swallow, especially when, women's empowerment and liberation is so pervasive that in a world that is given women the best opportunities in the history of the world, they can't seem to find a man they want to be with. They can't seem to have enough inner beauty or character to be desired by a man that they want to be with. So you can get the mistake that these women make is that when a man sleeps with them, they think that the man is truly interested in them for the long term. Sometimes they get that it's not, and they just will pass along the idea that casual sex is a form of personal freedom for them and that they can have sex like a man while their bodies are telling them something totally different. But the term alpha widow is played around, and it's a real thing. Oftentimes, women will view we'll call them high value man. We'll use that word. It's a flawed word, but it's a flawed term, but it's a term that I think is reasonably enough applicable to use here. So a woman sleeps with a high value man. He doesn't want to commit to her. She goes around and looks for another man at that level and can't seem to find someone who wants to commit to her who's like that. So she doesn't commit to anyone. She just waits. She doesn't have the attraction, that visceral, raw attraction that she had to that man. And she's stuck. And what does she do? She focuses on her career. She travels a lot. She socializes. She has experiences. She can't find a person that she feels like she's compatible with who wants to be with her. We have what they call, or what is called, a high sex supply society. So when sexual access is freely given, hypergamy is naturally going to become just a very commonplace theme. And you have a lot of sex, and so you're going to get some of those guys sleeping with a large number of those women, and then a large number of guys left in the background just wondering what to do. And that behavior is self-reinforcing. So the guys that are not pursuing women will continue to not pursue women, because the longer you go without facing a fear or without working towards something, the more you become complacent and the more you become fixated in your behavior. So we have a lot less marriage. We have a lot less sex. And we're not because people are waiting for marriage. They don't have the confidence to go and approach people to have sex with them, which is, it should be a good thing that people are waiting for marriage, and the reality is that it's actually even worse. But then we look at marriage and we see 30% of marriages are sexless. The levels of infidelity among women are now rising to those among men. So historically, more men were unfaithful in marriages than women, and now that is balancing out over time. There's a lot of people that would say this is equality. And I don't think anyone being unfaithful in marriage is a good thing. But I do believe sex is different for men and women. It's a different language. How do we get through this? This is the culture that we have in front of us. What men are doing is they're taking the easy way out. They are wealth, status. What is actually the most successful approach to getting with women is, you can call it game, you can call it confidence, you can call it charisma, but when women are attracted to men's behavior, they are attracted to not the resources that the man has, but the behavior that suggests that the man is capable of producing resources. So, I've read books like The Game, I've read the books on the pickup artists. There was even a side of me that when I was younger, as a guy who was nervous, shy, passive, afraid to talk to women, got turned down all the time in middle school and high school, just got made fun of all the time, was actually also very bizarrely seductive with women, where I would just go and say ridiculous things and women would love it, and I couldn't figure out, why does this work? Why does this hyper confidence, no filter, bizarre, peacock like behavior work? And it just does. And for me, it was, I hate myself when I do this, because I feel like I'm not being myself. I feel like I want women to like me for me. So ultimately, it's a man's personality which is going to change things. It's not his ability to accumulate reach. He can get jacked, he can get a six pack, he can get all these things, and women will still be turned off by his affect and his lack of social skills. When men have a tendency to own themselves, when they have call it inner belief, that's what women respond to. And we're not going to get that by telling men to be like women, to talk about our feelings, at least in the sense of not having a containment of our emotions and our feelings within the presentation of those feelings. My goal is to balance the sexual marketplace, to get a lot of these guys out there who don't believe in themselves, to give them a reason to believe in themselves. To get all of these women that have unrealistic expectations and have no awareness to the sexual appetites of some men to grow up and realize that they're going to end up being single and childless. And in a world that will perpetually validate them and reinforce their sense of self-worth and positive emotions that is so pervasive within female relationships. Someone needs to be real with these people. And I mean, where do I fit in all this? I do just want to change the world. That's who I've always been. Nothing has ever changed about that. I've kept my mouth shut for decades, not talking. You know, people used to say, like, why doesn't David talk? Like, why does he never say anything? It was I had friends, I've had girlfriends who were like, that guy just doesn't say a word. And you know, I hated myself for that. I didn't have a sense of self, a sense of identity, any whatever. But deep inside of me has been this one desire to change the world. And I would love to see people have happy relationships that last forever. And that we see a balanced masculine and feminine. That we see a more harmonious society. A more realistic, grounded, and at the same time ideologically beautiful and wondrous that combines both realism and idealism, which I don't think you can do this without having both. I don't think that you can not look at the brutal hard facts. And I also don't think at the same time you can't look at to the more fantasy, the more the dreamer, the hopeless romantics that so many of us have inside of us and say that that doesn't matter and that shouldn't be a piece of this either. I think both the men and the women need to change. If we can get back to men and women coming together and becoming one flesh and having amazing, passionate, consistent sex with just that person in marriage, bam, we're there. That's the masculine feminine polarity. It works, guys. It works. Women respond to it, men respond to it, our hormones feed off of one another. We feel like we're ourselves. I've seen it in my own life. I've seen it in the lives of others. And we've got to embrace it. You can't be telling dudes to be like women, and you can't be telling women to be like dudes. It just, you can force it, you can fake it, you can, wish it, want it, whatever. Your body, you have hormones. And is there some, personality, temperament, biological anomalies? Yes. I mean, everything is on a spectrum, but men and women, for the most part, are different across the board. But I think another big piece of this is, what do we truly want in a partner? Like, what truly works for all of the, I mean, look at the dating apps, look at the access. Look at the social media. Look at the connections. It's easier than ever. Like there's matchmaking. There's dating by whoever, that lady, that there's just dating by everyone. And how is any of that working for anyone? There are a few pretty good people on YouTube that have, I think, a lot of things figured out. And I think are coming up with some very, very interesting content. I wish that the messages that are getting out there were getting out there at a much broader level. But I think we're all sort of having to realize that we as a society don't have this figured out. I think that's a starting point. The starting point is overcoming denial, which is we're going in the right direction, or we should go back in the opposite direction. So I think neither one of those is true. We need to come to terms with that. But what really works in a relationship, out of everyone that I've spoken to, like 80 years old, 70 years old, 50 years old, people who are married who are my age, who are 37, people who've gotten divorced who are my age, who are 37. It comes down to respect. It comes down to a deep level of admiration for the character and values of the other person. You have to have that. Because if you don't, when you're at your darkest, when you're at your worst, you're going to actually resent that other person when they're at their worst. We're human beings, and you're asking two human beings to spend their lives together under one roof for the rest of their life. That is a heavy, heavy ask. And you're going to have, it's not hard to go out and find someone and have a passionate few months and have this high level of attraction, amazing sex. Amazing. He's just so dreamy. Or she's just super hot, great, amazing in bed. How does that work after 5 years of marriage? How do you feel about him? Are you mad at him? Did she put on some weight? Are you bored? We don't want to talk about these things, which is ridiculous. I mean, we look around at our celebrities and we're like, wow, this celebrity and that celebrity, look at how they look in this suit and this dress at this event, and wow, I just wish I would be with them or like them. And why would you ever want to be with them or like them? Why? If you ask them, they don't want to be them. Like, talk to a celebrity behind closed doors and ask about what their lives are really like. I have. And I think a lot of celebrities are open about this. This world is so complicated, we can't begin to fathom it, but our motivations and drives are oftentimes counterproductive. Our flesh is misleading, for sure. And I wouldn't even say that is a necessarily a Christian, notion. I think a lot of the secular community believes that as well. It's a matter of if and how much and in what forms. So how do we deal with all this? We accept what we have. We acknowledge what we have. We listen, we observe. So I think the answer is balance. I think it is a combination of a lot of different opinions, because I think a lot of people have a lot of right things to say. They just have some wrong things to say too. And we love it so much to say, here's this person's what they're taking. Here's everything they're saying is wrong. Just totally wrong. This ideology, whatever this is wrong. But what would happen if we said, where are they right? And then we said, where are they wrong? And then combining their argument into yours so that your argument is more convincing. So that you can make the case against them and present it to them in a way that allows them to change their mind. I'm going to leave this with what I think the gospel is. I said this before, and I'll say it again. If we are to believe that the gospel is real, that the Bible is the Word of God, I can't come up with a better way to describe it than God judges the heart. And that our hearts are wicked and deceptive, but have a capacity for change and growth. Because we're all made in God's image.